Hi, I'm Christina Trauthwein. I am the VP of Content and Partnerships at InspireDesign and also Hotel Business. And I wanted to welcome everyone today to our InspireDesign Hot Topics virtual panel series. Today, we're going to talk about art and hospitality and some of the trends we're seeing, ones to watch, engaging local talent, and so much more. I wanted to, before we start the session, to introduce the panelists we have. We have Mike Miller, and he's the Chief Vision Officer at Apollo. Sonia Kelsey, Principal of V-Star. Gary Inman, he's the President, Principal Designer at Gary Inman Interior Design, and also an Assistant Professor of Interior Design at High Point University. We have Monica Nesbach, she's the Chief Interior Designer at Design Bar. And Ashley Michaels, Senior Manager at Hilton. So thank you all for your time today. The session is an hour long, and I want to make sure we hear from everyone in the audience who is watching, because it's your questions that are really the important ones to answer. So as you know, there's a Q&A box, and I would encourage you to type your question in the bottom. I will take breaks during the session to get to your questions. And we'll have our panel answer them. We're going to be covering this Hot Topics session in the winter issue of Inspire Design on myinspiredesign.com, hotelbusiness.com, and as well as on our social media channels. The session's also being recorded, and it's going to be available on demand online, so we can make sure that everyone sees it. Before we even start the questions, I just wanted to take a moment also to thank our sponsor, Apollo Art, for today's panel discussion. We really appreciate your partnership in putting this together.
Thank you. Of course.
Okay, so Mike, we are going to start with you. Can you share with the audience and the other panelists why you founded Apollo Art?
Yeah, I'll give you a little background. Myself, I actually run a design build company out of Chicago. I've been doing that for almost 25 years, specializing in interior architecture and design. And then when we added artwork to that, we found primarily in high-rise work, there's a lack of wall space for my clients. And I had a lot of clients that had collections of art or were looking to collect art, and they had limited places to display work. And I thought, wow, this is a shame if a client has 30 pieces of art and 28 of them are sitting in storage and they never get to view them and enjoy the work. So that was part of the inception of really why Apollo was created. And because of my design capabilities, we added like fine finishes and unique ways to display, which we have, which are patented, and something that I put my first display in 2015, actually. And so it's been a pet project from like 2015 to 2019. And then we got like heavy industry traction when I had it in my showroom here. And a lot of people said, can I get this in my design? And what I really thought was unique was the way we married the design of the displays, whether they're built into the wall, flush, multiple displays, curated that was on theme with whether it's a hotel brand or whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a high-end home. You could tie in the finishes and experience that you want and really control that from aesthetic level and a content level. So you'd be able to display any type of mood of art depending on what the setting was calling for. Whether if you're in a hotel spa, a very more Zen like lower your heart rate. We are on American Airlines as well, so we do a lot with anxiety and wellness to promote arts and also for local heritage and culture as well in places they travel. So, I mean, to me, this is something that turned out to be a pet project, but really took over my life over the past 5 years. So this is definitely a conversation I love to have. And I find myself having these conversations multiple times on a daily basis now, because I think art is so impactful and empowering in our lives. And with today's challenges that the world is facing. I think art is very inclusive, brings people together. The healing power of art, you name it. So I could go on and on talking forever, but really to kind of paraphrase and sum it up, I wanted an easy way for art to learn about art, to display works, for people to learn about artists, for artists to be able to share their works with anyone across the globe, and Apollo really be that platform, that trusted platform that people can go to learn, acquire, sign up for memberships and so on and so forth, and really promote the creator community.
Great. Well, we're going to touch upon some of the things that you already touched upon in that answer, especially the power of art and how that can, help with wellness strategies and so forth. But let's start a little bit more with, it's been said that the art market is very unapproachable and it's challenging for many people to be afforded accessibility to fine art, to learn, to discover. Why is that? And how do we make it more approachable and more accessible?
I could jump in real easy on that one because, really Apollo was born, really out of that need. So to make it easy for me as, our design firm to actually learn about art, different types of art that clients were interested in, and give a way to display that art so it can evoke that emotion to an end client. I would always hear the only way to really learn about art is to going to, the art shows, or, going to a gallery that represented those artists. And a lot of people are, it's almost the 1% talking about the 1%, but there's still 99% of the population that was really looking to learn about art. So we have really an access platforms for people to learn about all different types of work through different search functions, through our curation, which we lead to with our curation team that does typically stuff that's on theme with what's happening maybe in the world or at any given time in the month, to learn about those curations, play those curations, enjoy those curations, and then also take a discovery dive into the work. And it's skin very similar to a lot of technology today, where it learns your persona and your preferences and starts generating more different areas to check out. Would you let check out this, other people are watching this, just to create that rabbit hole and deep dive, and just make it interesting and fun for people to interact with art, and be able to really take your gallery or your curations anywhere you go in the world and play those in your home, at work, in your travels. Similarly, the way music impacts our life, I feel art should be impacting our lives the same way.
Okay. Does someone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah.
Can I say?
Go ahead, Gary.
Gary.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, as an educator, I think part of the problem is people are fundamentally intimidated by art. And I have this with some of my clients who are incredibly sophisticated, but they're really uncomfortable when it comes to art. And I think education is so critical. We need to start educating everyone in America to have some understanding of art and not be intimidated, embrace it, love it, and participate with it. So I really think, fundamentally, that's one of the big issues.
Yeah, so education,
Sonia, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's so important to, connect people to art and art to people. So education is a way to do that. Sonia, you wanted to?
Yeah, I think education, but also I like what a lot of the major cities have been doing. I know I'm based in West Palm, and we've been doing a lot of public art, and that's part of it. So when you want to develop a property and you're an owner, you're required to have some type of public art or park or some kind of space that you create. A lot of the cities have been getting involved in that. There's a lot of graffiti. So if you have an empty wall, you just allow that graffiti art. I remember back in 2002, I was working on a project and I hired a graffiti artist, and everyone thought I was insane. And I did it in a show house and had the graffiti artist do the art on the whole wall. And now that's a thing. I mean, that is what it is. That makes it attainable. It makes people believe that it's part of that education, and it's also part of, you feel like you can also be a part of that. I can also be an artist. I can display. I don't have to be like back in the day, it was like, sorry, but you had to pass away for your art to be valued. And I don't
To that point too, I actually feel that art has become way more accessible than it used to be. I mean, if we look at social media, it has given us access to artists and art expressions that we haven't seen before. And I feel like there's so many ways now to acquire art, to get original art, and also people being more interested in seeing artists through the media, So I feel like that's kind of enabled us to be more accessible, or art to be more accessible than it actually ever was. Original art, that is.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic had really forced a lot of this forward, where I had a lot of artists coming to us saying, we don't have fairs right now, and we don't, my galleries aren't open, but how do I connect with the audience and the end user? And I think a lot of them turn to social media, to YouTube and Instagram and whatnot, to actually get their expressions out there. And I think our community really gravitated towards that. And I think that's great, because what you really want to create a following if you're an artist or a creator, to really understand who you are, what you're doing, what message you're trying to create, or what emotion you're trying to evoke with your work. So I find that most people really love to know about the artists or behind the scenes in the making of the work, just as much as the final work itself. So that's something that we put on our platform too, is being storytellers, to be able to tell the story of the artist, and use technology to be able to deliver that message anywhere across the world is very important.
I want to take a step back for a second, and Ashley, I could bring you into this a little bit. At what phase of the planning or building of the PIP process should artwork for a property be considered? Part one, and also, how often should artwork be switched out or replaced at a property?
I think that's a great question. I think it's something that we end up discussing pretty regularly throughout renovation projects. And I think that it really is kind of a case-by-case basis. Like, as a part of renovations, a lot of times materials and ugly out before they wear out, right? And I think art is very much kind of up for negotiation when it comes to that, because if you are telling a dynamic story with the renovation that you're putting together, you can likely incorporate some pieces, maybe not all pieces. But I do think that there's also an argument to be made that why are we always trashing that, right? We could be hiring local artists. We could be searching for someone through social media who is local to the property or has a story to tell that could be incorporated into like a more additive approach to the pieces to kind of bring it back to life and get a second life out of those pieces. And there is no rules, right? I think to your point earlier, like, why is fine art inaccessible? I think it's really only because the fine art community has sort of created that language. And I think that I don't think that we have to live by that anymore, right? There is no such thing as real art versus, like, what is the alternative? There's no fake art. It either is a thing or it is not a thing. And it is only based on whoever is appreciating it. And my approach to art in pretty much all avenues is, if you have a reaction to it, good, bad, or indifferent, it is successful because you have a feeling. Whether it's you walk away hating it, I think that's equally as successful as you walking away telling all of your best friends about it. But a reaction is innately successful in that, in its creation.
Ashley, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. So I want to talk a little bit about the balance between aesthetics and brand identity. So ensuring that the art aligns with the hotel's messaging. Mm-hmm. What is the role of art in creating that unique and differentiated space that ensures that each property has a fresh and distinct experience?
Yeah, so my history was more earlier in my career at Hilton. I was working on more collection brands, and now I'm into the prototype realm. And so there is a challenge when it comes to either doing a fully bespoke hotel versus a more prototypical design. And I think you have an opportunity with art to make each of them individual or as, easily repeatable for both kind of avenues. There are often, we put regionality onto a prototype, right? Like, is this more Southwest focused? Is this more, coastal, etc.? And I think there's still opportunity to either pick up the color scheme or really the motifs, but trying to be as abstract with it as possible so that you're not just getting, knots and sailboats when you're in a coastal environment, and you're not just getting cactus and, sunsets in a Southwestern experience, and being able to kind of pick a nuanced, untold story of those regions to try and bring that through. And then you get a more dynamic approach, and you then in turn get more opportunity to express that through the art.
Okay.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. I think you can really personalize the message to your intended, persona of client, traveler walking through there, by having some local heritage and culture, with the arts and really amplify the hotel's messaging.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to get into sourcing local art and artists. There's a power of art, and I know Mike Apollo would say that, to inspire creativity, art for wellness, to reduce stress, art for diversity, to celebrate heritage and culture, as you've all mentioned. How do you use this art to express that power? And for instance, how can art be used in an overall wellness strategy at a hotel?
One thing that I didn't realize when I kind of embarked on this journey was, all the benefits of art when we started doing a lot of research. And right now, more people call off for mental health than they do for actually being sick. So certainly that's, at the forefront of I think our in today's day and age. And I think art is definitely very therapeutic, that art can actually, I don't want to say heal people, but actually provide the power to adjust your mindset, certainly by looking at certain types of art that we do with the American Airlines. It lowers your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, it puts you in a more relaxed mood if you want to go to bed, or vice versa. If you're at more of a livelier lounge or a faster moving lobby, you could have art that's more evoking more emotion, energized, more exciting. So I think really pairing the type of art with the outcome that you're desiring. Certainly in a hotel spa, you definitely want to be, curating an art that is more zen, that's more therapeutic, that people can relax, totally immerse themselves in that environment. So I think it's really for us, and we work with several hotel brands out there, it's really identifying, where are you at in the hotel and what type of experience are you trying to create, and how we can really weave that art into that experience. And especially people look to the clients or the travelers, but a lot of times you're looking inward into your employees and team to actually, celebrate them and their diversity and their inclusion, and empowering them to play works that speak to them. So we do a lot, in the DEI community of creating art themes, curations that are on point with brands to represent who their employees are, who their teams are, to inspire more creativity in the office and feel more represented. So I think it's definitely such a wide range right now, but with the technology that luckily we've been able to harness and put in our platform, we can change that experience like on the dime almost, and change out the works and celebrate multitude of artists or multitude of different moods or themes depending on what the hotel is trying to deliver, and really harness that wall space as well and turn it into a gallery experience for the client or the traveler coming in some cases an ever evolving gallery that they always see something different when they walk between morning, noon, and night. 3 different moods, 3 different types of artworks being celebrated. Or we have certain artists that are actually doing exhibitions like within the hotels to promote their work, so that we can literally bring a gallery of works through the technology, and you don't have to physically frame, hang, put these on the wall, and then actually have to take that down and refresh it. But we can let the hotel decide and choose and pick their curations, or they work with our curation team to make sure we can deliver that message.
Yeah, and for us, it's like, what is art? I mean, art can be anything. Art is in nature. Art can be the material that is indigenous to that area and that location. You bring that in slab form or otherwise. Art can be a perforated wall that, you know, takes some of the acoustics, or it has a texture to it. It's something, it's not always just something on a wall that you can see. So it's tangible. It's, you can, sometimes it's something that you're playing with, right? Now they have the digital art that comes and it's on the floor and you're playing with the art. You're part
Interactive,
of,
yeah.
Mhm.
right. It's totally interactive. And I think that is a big deal now. I think, you know, that's how we play into it with the different properties. It's not just, you know, what you're looking at, but what can you see? What can you be part of? Because I think that an experience is part of the story.
Yeah, and trying to-
diversity. I'm just going to say that diversity works really well in different types of spaces. I'm doing a spa at the moment, so the experience I'm creating there is very much, as Mike said, you know, it's about serenity and self-reflection and healing. But then I've got a conference center that I'm doing. I've got a couple of restaurants I'm doing, and all of the experiences are different. I like to unify it based on the story for that particular property, but then given these great experiences, they can move from one part of the building to the next and have a completely different emotional journey with the art. And the art, to me, is the most powerful agent of telling the story. So I always start with art, as Ashley said before. I mean, it's there from the very beginning. So, kudos.
Ashley, did you want to jump in, you said?
I was just going to say, I think it's really about trying to figure out and articulate the energy that you're trying to evoke in that space. I've traveled with my children a fair amount, and I have a 5-year-old who I've taken to very like natural feeling resorts, and his energy completely adjusts to the surroundings, right? And it's so exciting to be able to see how someone can be, who has no limitations on like their behavior, essentially, how they can respond to a space that is very like calming and serene, and you take them to the next property that is very energetic, and immediately their entire reaction to the space changes. And so being able to articulate what you're trying to create is, I think, the first step in trying to put together some sort of, curation of that art package, and then being able to fine tune that throughout the spaces, because you obviously want to have, different experiences throughout your property, but being able to understand and articulate that while putting it together, I think, is a really key component to being successful with that.
Monica, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Sonia's point to the point is, what is art? I recently stayed at a eco resort, and they had a typhoon, and it washed this huge piece of driftwood onto shore, which was, I mean, incredibly big. And the resort actually used it, put it into the wine cellar, and made it a table, like the center table, put like little glass sections on the sides. And it's like, it fills out the entire room. It's the first thing you see, and you just have this grand experience when you walk into the wine cellar and see this piece of driftwood in the middle. At the end of the day, it was trash, and it was made into something that's a feature. I think to Ashley's point too, what do you want to, you have to be clear on what you want to achieve in the space, and then, curate accordingly. Biophilic art, for example, there's so many, it's become so huge because of the, characteristics that it has, that it does reduce blood pressure, it does reduce stress, it increases productivity of employees. So, it's really, what is the intent? But art is, at the end of the day, the jewelry to your outfit, for space. So if you tell the story cohesively, it's the most important thing, really.
And sometimes, like Ashley said, I'm just imagining that resort you went into, and the art was the entire space.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
The form, the color, the feeling, it was the art.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to watch, someone who has no way of appreciating it, or no way of articulating how they are appreciating it, and just full response, physical, emotional response was just a really enlightening way of getting to kind of see that come to life.
I kind of echo what everyone said, but I'll go back to the educational aspect. I think as all of us are here and geared into like the design in more of the conceptual phases of the projects, I think it's really like our responsibility to educate a lot of people on the art and the power of art, because unfortunately art typically is the first thing to get knocked off the budget a lot of times, as we all know, and go through these challenges. And I try to get it a little more early on in the conversation, more in like the design development or the hotel narrative stage, because of the importance, like you said, Ashley, of just the emotional power that you can create and evoke and marry that within the like FF&E packages and whatnot and all the finishes. So I think, we just have to keep kind of keep our foot down and keep letting people know how powerful it is and how amazing it is when you do have the full cohesive plan come together, come to life with all the emotional aspects, instead of, this wall's bare because we ran out of budget and we didn't really get to tell the complete story that, a property is looking to tell, or a hotel is looking to experience for their guests.
So yeah, and to that point, I think there's also, we have to remind ourselves that just because the initial concept was, maybe this grand piece, that doesn't necessarily mean that scaling it down makes it then less successful, right? I mean, there's a very undersized piece can have an equal amount of visual weight as an incredibly large piece, because you have to get so much closer to it to be able to appreciate it. So there's this more like intimate level of understanding of a piece. So, we don't always have to fill every inch. We need to be able to give ourselves the flexibility to, flex with budgets, because everyone knows that they exist, and it can always be, the fifth level of design. But it is something that we need to, really weigh, because it has such an impact.
So we've been talking a little bit about art in the digital age. So digital exhibitions are one of the many examples of how art has evolved through the times. What advice can you offer hoteliers when implementing digital art? And are there any pros and cons very specifically to implementing it?
I mean, I'll take that one first. Certainly, like we put a lot of design into like the right display. We really understand, what the hotel narrative and what they're trying to achieve. And just like Ashley or other people said, or Sonia, it can be done whether it's small, large. What type of moment are you looking to have? Is this a focal point, or what's happening here? And then we kind of like design our typically types of displays around that to create that emotional aspect. But a lot of what we're doing, these are commercial grade displays with matte, frame. So it's almost indistinguishable now in technology. Some of the types of works you would not even know that this is digital representation of the work versus a true work itself. So I think it's kind of a sign of the times that technology has afforded us, or somebody like me, the luxury to be able to display an artist's work in the representation that they would want it displayed, in the resolution that they would want it displayed to evoke that emotion. And I think it's, I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong answer, but I feel you can, by investing or doing something in that, you don't really have to invest in one large piece of art, but you can invest in multiple pieces. You can invest in multiple artists, and you can almost have an exhibition on the walls. And then, some of the hotels we're doing programs with, where they're actually putting that on the website about the art, about the hotel, celebrating the artists, and it's becoming a kind of a lead for the guests to acquire those works, to make it, to support the artist community, And, the hotel can even be a revenue generating opportunity, very similar to turning a hotel into a gallery experience, and a lot of the same, form and functionality of an art gallery. So I think a lot of people are getting very creative in, today's day and age of knowing the impact of their wall space and knowing how they want that to interact with certain guests when you do have a high visibility, high traffic location, and that memorable experience you're really trying to create. And I think it's super cool that you can continue to evolve that based on maybe the time of the month or certain initiatives with mental health or Black History Month or something that the hotel's doing. You could constantly evolve your theme as the hotel changes.
Let's talk a little bit about AI generated art. How will AI impact the production of art, considering copyright, ethics questions associated with AI? Does anyone want to take that?
I'll take it.
Okay.
So I feel I'm actually a big fan of AI. I feel AI is going to be an extension of our creativity and is going to make us better. And it's a tool that we have and that we should use. From an ethics perspective, if your original thought goes into the definition of what you're looking for, it is still a creation that is coming out of your brain. So to me, that is still original at the end of the day. Now, of course, it gets fuzzy when you're mixing things and you're using something from there and using something from there and then creating something new. But then again, musicians do it and artists do it too, So I feel AI has a future and AI is here to stay. And I hope I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, as designers, we
Actually, devil's advocate. Can I be a devil's advocate?
Challenge me.
Say that again.
Can I be the devil's advocate?
Yes. Devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So I agree with part of what Monica said, but as someone who's teaching, the honor code is being broken every day now because the Gen Z, they don't necessarily think of this in the mature way that you do, Monica. So it's becoming, this is the way to get my assignment done in 2.2 seconds. So, to me, it has fabulous opportunities as a tool in the hands of the right person. It has terrible, earth-shattering results if it's in the hands of someone who doesn't have the right judgment and ethical foundation. So I think we need to go into it with our eyes wide open, realizing it can be either fabulous or it could be potentially disaster. And I agree with someone like Susan Sarandon who said, they've got my face, they've got my voice. What's to keep them from essentially taking my career away and doing whatever they want with it? So it's a double-edged sword, truly a double-edged sword. So
yeah, agreed. I mean, parameters will have to be set. And I think the more we get to know the tool, the more we will be able to set those parameters, because at the end of the day, we don't know yet what the extent of it is going to be. But I think once those parameters are set, I think the opportunities are endless and it's going to make us better.
Yeah, I think you guys are both correct. For us, we definitely, lean in on the artist and the creator, and we don't want to, have their work, next to AI generative work. But I completely agree with you, Monica. If they're actually having a say in using AI as technology to actually enhance their vision or product or any type of tool, then I embrace it wholeheartedly. We've used AI a lot for back end processes on our end to make things more achievable, and coming out with the AI curator feature for our platform to really speak or ask, I'm feeling this mood, what would I want my curator to display for me to get that emotion that I'm looking to get, and using art is a tool for that. But still, it's really, or using AI as a tool for that, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a human piece of art, or the human are still involved. And we haven't really gone completely to AI generative art to put that on our platform to replace an art by a human. But certainly it's out there, and it's being debated, and all the intellectual property rights are being debated in the courts right now too. So it'll be interesting to see, but there's an amazing creator community out there that we still want to leverage and support for what we do, that I would say just being responsible.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be mixed media, right? It's just another tool or another element that's being mixed with something original,
Yeah,
but coming also to the point of accessibility of art, creating democratic art, how we want to say it, right? In the words of Philip Stark, I think there's opportunities there to make it more accessible, for everybody. So,
Ashley, Sonia, do you want to jump in on this question?
Now I just find it frustrating. It's like when you're thinking of something and then you're trying to put it in AI and you're like, no, it didn't get me. It has no emotion, so it doesn't understand the request.
Nuances, yeah.
Right. It doesn't get the nuances. It's just not quite there yet for me. And so, as designers, it's in your head and you see it, and then you see it. Like I could be pointing out in the air and people think I'm insane because I'm looking at what I'm saying. And we haven't used it to that level yet because it just hasn't gotten there yet. But I think it will. And I think that there is, like Gary said, there's people in the world that, they're going to use it as the easy way out. That's just with anything. They would have found another way to do it. They would have stolen from somewhere else online, ever since Google existed. And then, as Monica's saying, it's like, it is your vision. So as long as you're continually putting in the data and manipulating it, it is your creation.
And it teaches us to actually be more specific and concise in what we express, right? So it's like
you get out of it what you put into it.
Exactly.
So if you are, iterating on it regularly, it becomes kind of almost like poetry, right? You're speaking to it and it's creating it. And so there's no way to say that is any less of an art form because you have, understood the language of the AI to be able to create what your vision is. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm by no means an expert in it, but I have seen it be quite successful and quite unsuccessful, depending on how you are understanding the prompts in which to put in. So, I think there's a huge opportunity for it. I think it of course, with anything new, there are ways for it to be incredibly problematic as well. But, it will be found out when people are abusing it. So, I think it's a very exciting opportunity.
So we do have some questions from the audience. So I'm going to jump over to those right now. So here's the first one. When it comes to sourcing local art or sourcing artwork for a hotel project, how important is it that you find a local artist in the same region as the hotel? And do you look for an artist everywhere to find the right art piece?
Yeah, two-part question for some of our properties. So we just completed one in Condado Beach in Puerto Rico, and it was really important to us to look for the local artist. And a lot of times it's historic, right? So it's like, we had a project here locally as well where we went, it took us hours. We ended up, filtering through files of historic art or who this artist is. Rotating displays. It really depends on the property and what that story is. If the story isn't aligning with either a historic or it's not art centric, then you source it from everywhere.
Okay. Does anyone else?
Yeah, I think there's some ways to infuse a local artist as in a person, but you can also infuse a local material to be able to bring that to draw that story in. And I think just having a point of view that is local is going to help, whether that comes from someone down the street or across the country, as long as it's being, appreciated and respected in that way. I think it all still says local. And I think that's really up to the owner in their final selection process to really be able to help bring that to life.
Yeah, with the hotel narrative of really what you're trying to portray or have the guests experience, it's definitely, I would say, very important for, that I hear from a lot of our customers. You want to feel like the city you're in, or you want to feel like the country you're in. And they take a lot of pride in their brand to be able to give the traveler that experience. So I think you're dead on with the design, the architecture, the finishes, having like local wood that may be local to the region, or you just feel like you're really in the city you're in. And if it's some of the the larger chain brands, it could be very tough because you have an overall like aesthetic that you typically adhere to. But I think these little local details that you bring out, and local lighting, millwork, furniture, artwork can really help like stamp that property and that expression that hotel's looking to create, to say, wow, this was very charming. I really felt like I was in a different city or a different country, and really immersed myself in that experience.
Gary, I saw you nodding your head in agreement.
I just wanted to say, I love this idea, and so we use a lot.
Gary, I'm going to interrupt 1 second. Gary,
artist, and one problem now it's North Carolina, which is the suburb of Raleigh, lovely hotel. Yeah,
Gary, I'm going to
hear
ask
me, Christina.
Now I can. I'm going to ask you to repeat that. You broke up during that.
I was just saying, I work with local artists on all my projects. I have this one project we're doing, and it's a rotating exhibit of artists. So people, community, come to the hotel in a static moment where we chose the local artists. It's an ongoing, evolving exhibit, the local community, and it creates this really enormous, synergy between the community and hotel property. So I love that. I think supporting local artists is such an important thing for us to do because it's the right thing to do. But it just creates this bridge. It's really powerful. Sorry, I think I have a bad connection. I hope part of it came through.
Okay. Let me go to another question from our audience. What are the benefits of interior designers using hospitality art consultants versus sourcing artwork on their own? Sonia, I'm going to pick on you.
Time, right? So, and options. So if we're going to, Apollo, for instance, and this is the aesthetic, or this is what we want to evoke as far as emotion. This is the storyline, everything. They're coming to us with everything. We're not going out and looking for it and beating down doors and Googling for hours and hours. It is a major time saver, and we all know time is money.
Okay.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
I totally agree with Sonia. It's time, it's curation. It takes hours, and they're experts. So I tell them what I want, they bring it back to me. It's phenomenal.
I think it's also the quality, right? Like the installation and the ability to have that be a known entity. And, I think we all would love to be able to just like curate. I know that in my personal life, I love to do that, but how do we hang everything? How do we make sure that we have enough of it and it gets there on time and is shipped in a, in a phased approach? Like all of those nuances that go into the success of the end result being delivered in a timely manner, I think is really something that is fine-tuned throughout a hospitality art consultant. I'm sure a local artisan could be able to create that, but there would be so much more hand-holding involved that it just becomes, again, to Sonia's point, the time.
Yeah, and I think some of the art consultants, depending if we're talking about, building hotels globally, and you're looking for an artist, in the Middle East or something, working with a curator, it's going to be very easy to work within their network of who they know to really deliver upon what you're doing, and it could be easier to work with the local community if you actually are working with a local curator that understands the region you're in, instead of you taking it upon yourself to kind of do your due diligence and look that up. So it all comes down to time and money, but hopefully you're getting a better end result too.
I do have to say though, it's a lot more fun to do it yourself, and you do learn a lot more if your client has given you that budget or time or otherwise. And Gary had a point earlier that we should be supporting. I know a lot of people didn't hear him, but I heard a little bit of it was we should be supporting the local artists. And when we go, sometimes the art consultant route, it's a replication of what the local artist might have done. And then when you're doing it yourself, you're really finding that local artist. And while you're finding that local artist, you're getting more involved with the story of the area. There's always the people that go and hang the art. You can hire them and they can go do that. And I think it really just depends on the project, the timeline, and the budget.
We have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to continue with these. Let's see. Artwork is initially a visual medium. How is the balance of conceptual and purely aesthetic achieved in artwork selection?
I think it's visually, telling the story. When somebody's looking at it, what type of story are you actually trying to convey to the in the hotel case, the traveler, and just an extension of that journey.
Okay.
I do sometimes question whether the guest actually picks up on the full story that we have created behind, right? I think there's still success in a piece, whether it is actually scripted to a T to fit that story. Would the guest be able to point that back out to us? Would they be able to sell it back to us if they were there? I was brought into the hospitality industry because of the art. I was in a totally different industry and appreciated this piece while trying to, escape from a meeting that I was in. And because of that, changed everything. And so I think it has such a power, to your point earlier, I think, and I don't know what the story was that they were trying to tell me when it was installed, but I had a connection and it gave me that ability to escape what I was, a meeting I was sitting in and getting ready to go to, and I was able to just sit there and contemplate this thing, right? And giving our guests an opportunity to just clear their mind and think about something completely outside of what they would select or experience, I think, is really the magic of what we get to do every day.
Yeah, I don't think the story, if it's not aligned with your website, your PR, with your talent, right? I check in and while I'm waiting, you're like, please enjoy this because, don't forget, we have this little detail, enjoy that. Everybody has to be part of that. It is a brand as a whole, not in pieces.
Yeah, brand identity.
We're trying to get to all these questions. Let's see. Another one. In the context of art trends focused on longevity, how do you see the balance between traditional art forms, which have endured for centuries, and cutting-edge digital technologies that can potentially preserve art in new ways? What challenges and opportunities does this dichotomy present for future of art and its legacy?
I think there's a perfect example that I learned about, and just in the technology of due to the war in Ukraine, and don't want to be political here, but they were worried about all of their art being ruined and destroyed, so they actually started digitizing all their artwork and putting it on the the blockchain to preserve their legacy and heritage, so that they would have that story to tell for multiple generations. And I thought that was a very unique way that somebody was taking cutting edge technology, but preserving old art and artifacts and making it relevant not only today but also in the future and years to come.
What are some emerging themes you're on the lookout for 2024 in terms of hospitality spaces?
Hospitality spaces in relation to art?
Yes.
Well, I think it's just being open to digital art, being open to, a lot of people still aren't on board with that, right? So I think it's just being flexible, and technology is a big part of the world that we live in. And I think it's embracing that and mixing it all, right? So having some that are tangible and some that are digital, having something that creates an experience and just being open to it. I think a lot more people, now that AI is coming to the masses, are going to be becoming more open to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think also with generations, with technology generations growing older and becoming the clients of hotels, the technology is more expected now, from a check-in to like getting into the room, walking through the hallways and having an immersive experience sometimes even, like digital immersive experience, kind of like the Van Gogh exhibit, right? I mean, what an amazing way to teach also original old, like, history of art to a generation that only knows technology and is wowed by technology. So I think it plays a huge role.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Really be able to experience a property or a location in advance of actually arriving, and also bringing it with you once you leave. So you have, like, if there's a digital piece on the website, you can start to try and think about where it would be and contemplate it in that way. And then when you find it, there's that whole sense of experience of surprise and, searching for it, and then potentially bringing it home with you if that is, an opportunity as well.
Yeah, I would say certainly experience driven is really what I'm seeing. Post pandemic, a lot of people are gravitating towards providing an experience, whether it be digital, physical, what have you, a memorable experience that people can kind of gravitate towards and latch onto. And there's so many unique ways that people can do that now within what we're trying to do with technology.
How do you determine what art is too trendy and which has more longevity?
That is kind of tricky.
I don't know if you can. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gary. No, go, Gary.
It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it's always about it having substance and longevity and being tied into the story very much. And I'm always looking at what's happening in fashion, what's happening in art, really searching for the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age. And if you do that, you get an art program that has sustainability. If you're just following the trends, I mean, I love Barbie as much as anyone else, but if people...
Oh, Gary.
I think we know where that was going.
I know, I wanted to hear that, Gary.
Trend, it's not going to be a movement like sustainability. If you follow something like sustainability or biophilic, that's a movement. If you jump on the Barbie pink train, that's a fad or a trend.
Right.
You're going to regret those art decisions. I love Barbie, don't get me wrong. But, you got to really think about...
Get past pink.
It's going to be 5 years.
It was beach Barbie. Come on.
Beach.
The color pink is never going to go out of style.
So, Gary, you just brought up sustainability. So how does sustainability and eco-friendly options drive... It drives so much of what we do. So how does environmental awareness integrate with art? How do we use recycled materials and sustainable practices in creating art?
Yeah, I really love what we're doing with things that are repurposed. Palette Check's one of my favorite art sources because they're taking things that were normally thrown away and making really fabulous art out of it. Mm-hmm. I love that it is sustainable, that it really cares about the planet. And, so to me, it's something that everyone should be incorporating into their art program.
Anyone else?
I mean, I can't agree more. I think it should be incorporated into all aspects of the design. And I think that, artists have always kind of used what they had available to them. And I think there's a lot of incredibly talented artists and makers out there that are doing just that. And so as the same as we should be incorporating local influences, I think we should also be looking for artists who are also incorporating, found, used, recycled, artifacts or items into their art as well.
Yeah, if I could ask you a question, Ashley, What are you seeing, from the hotel side of things, and how important is sustainability from, concept to completion, or actually, the materials being used in the property all the way down to the art itself? Like how relevant is that in the projects you're doing?
I think it's paramount in every conversation that we're having throughout prototype design and, concept evolution and everything. It's, we only have this one space. We have so much product in every single hotel that gets replaced, at a very regular cycle. And so we all need to be aware of what those limitations are in the supply chain and use our voices to help push forward what we know is possible, whether it's, it's often an uncomfortable conversation because it's always easier to go with the known, but I think it's all of our responsibility to continue to push forward with that.
Mm-hmm.
Good to hear.
The vendors have been really taking that to heart lately, and there's a lot. I mean, you can flip it over now, and there's something. They got some recycled product at least into that material. Yeah, hopefully.
So, Gary, I'm throwing this one in for you. So, talk about art right now being more like an experience, evoking emotion, creating a connection. What about art being used in a more functional aspect? So hospitality spaces, especially restaurants and bars, they deal with acoustical issues a lot, as we all know.
Yeah.
What role can art play in addressing something like that? Gary?
Yes, I've been dealing with that one a lot, Christina, because so many of the restaurants we're working on, it's always the big complaint people have. I can't hear my friends. The acoustics are terrible, and I feel that way oftentimes. I've been working with a company called Flashworks, and they do these great art installation method, and they use hemp as the sound absorber. So they do these great pieces of art, and you think, oh, wow, that's so monumental and phenomenal. But it's also serving to mitigate sound waves. And you can adjust, that you don't want a restaurant to be dead, obviously. You don't want to remove all of the sound reverberation. But so there are great ways to combine both the aesthetic and the functionality of an acoustical product. So I love what's happening with that. And I'm hoping that other people will follow. He was the co-founder of Buzzy Space, so he's got that incredible acoustical background. And so they're really doing a proprietary process for creating these works.
Hey.
I hope that came through, Christina.
What? Say it again.
Oh. I hope it came through. I said, I hope you were able to hear what I said.
Yes, we were.
I think it's useful information for other designers.
We were definitely able to hear it.
Great.
We only have a few minutes left. It's funny, when we all got on this phone call before the session started and became live, we said, oh, this is going to take 2 hours or 2 weeks to discuss. And you're right. There are still a lot of questions we didn't get to. There's questions from the audience we didn't get to. So maybe this means we all need to regroup another time to continue the discussion. But in the meantime, we are going to end soon. So what I like to do is start with Monica. I'm going to start with you. Just kind of a key takeaway, something that you want our viewers today to hear and kind of take with them as it relates to the topic.
No, of course you're putting me on spot now.
Okay, you know what, Monica? If you want to take a minute to think about it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel art is all around us, and it is not an afterthought. I want people to know and artists to know that art is not an afterthought. It's something that is an integral part of design and of spaces, and it has so many intentions and functions as well, as we just talked about, that it's never going to go away and it will always be important. So if that's one takeaway that I can convey, then that's the one.
That's perfect. Thank you. Gary.
I would say that art is the most enduring human creation. We see it from the Stone Age wall paintings to the present. It's never going to go away because we need to express emotion. And we have people like Apollo and all the other great art suppliers to help us do that. So I think art is just essential to the human experience.
Perfectly said. Sonia.
I'll go back to my what is art, because it's not just the figures on the walls, but it's architecture is art, interior design is art, the beautiful trees, the cherry blossoms that only happen in a flash. All of that is art. The sunset is art, and it's all around you, and just absorb it, and it will bring you joy.
I like that. Ashley?
I fully agree with what Sonia said. I think that there really are no rules with art, right? There's no right or wrong when it comes to art. There is those who may or may not appreciate it, but be risky with it and make sure that you're bringing something surprising to all of your selections and spaces.
Okay, and final word, Mike.
No, thank you. I think everyone had great, dead on responses for that, but I would like to see art used more in our everyday lives, like we use music, for emotions, and the more I think we could connect with art, I think the more, better society we're going to live in, from creativity, from more of a mental health, personal wellness. So, that's kind of my personal mission and takeaway, to help be a part of the solution there, to provide more art to more people.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for participating today and for your time and your insight. Thank you, everyone, to watching today. And don't forget, there's going to be coverage of this online, in print. You can watch the session again if you want to go back and take notes or share it with someone. And I also want to thank, again, Apollo for their partnership with us to bring this to you today. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Great panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.